That was purely by accident that the band started. I had been thinking about this, but not very seriously. And I was on my way to India for a semester, and Henry Bowen and I and some others used to go out every Friday, mostly to the faculty club for TGIF. And in the afternoon before I was leaving for India, we were at the faculty club, and I don't know what got into me that I said to Henry, someday I'm going to start a German band. That was the extent of it. I came back 4 months later from India, just before Christmas, and on New Year's Eve, Carolyn and I went to the faculty club, as we did with a group of people, which did include Henry and his wife and a bunch of other people. And we're dancing around at the faculty club, and Henry stopped me. He said, "You remember when you said you were going to start a German band?" I said, "Yeah, I remember." And he said, "Well, here's a list." He had an old raggedy piece of paper, I think it was an envelope, with 12 names on it. He said, "Here's some people that want to play in the band." And I said, "Well, okay, I'll think about it." He says, "Don't think too long, because you're already booked to play here at the faculty club in February." Well, unknown to me, while I was away, while Henry was the chairman of the faculty senate, he announced to the whole faculty that Jim Hammerly was going to start a German band. Who wants to play in it? And actually, he got a few of those people together at his house while I was away, and they talked about it. And Walt Scraw had some connections up in Wisconsin and had played with German-style polka bands up there. And so he contacted, I think, his brother, and they got at least one small book of music, which of all things is called the Little German Band Book, which we always called the Green Book. And so they had that book, a few parts for that book. So I got together with Walt very soon after the first of the year, and looked at that Green Book, and I think we ordered another book or two. Just these small little band books. Music was simple, and we started to have some practices. And at every practice, there were more and more people who came, until the word was all over campus. And of course, when the band started, it was made entirely of faculty members. Well, the next thing that happened, I was caught totally off guard, was we have to have a name so the faculty club can advertise it. And you've got, it's like 2 weeks into the future that we're going to play. So what did I choose for a name? But what was on that green band book, the Little German Band. I don't know if it was a good name or not. Turned out to be ironic in that it wound up not being little. And we only had one German, and that was Hans Stottlemyre, who was my consultant all the time, because I had no idea about German culture. I'd been to Germany a couple times, but I really didn't know the band music scene very well. So that's how it got started, with the faculty members. And then we had John Ely from the engineering dean's office on trumpet, Hans Stottlemyre on accordion, and his graduate student, Leon Jordan, on trumpet. And we had Bob Monroe from Statistics Department on tuba, and his graduate student, Hans Heyman, on tuba also. And then Hans's wife, Kathy, came in on bells. And Marilyn Saylor, whose husband was a faculty member, came in on tuba also. And from my own department, we had Cliff Willey, Roger Rohrbach, and Jerry Bachman on clarinets. We had Ed Weiser on baritone, Henry on the cymbals, and George Kriz on bass drum. And it just kept growing. We brought more and more people in. Roger Feitz on trumpet. Keith Castle came in a little later on clarinet. Jeannie Nelson's husband was a faculty member, and Jeannie came in on trombone. Dick King was trombone player. I'm sure I'm leaving out a lot of people, but there were just so many coming from campus, and then their wives. And then from my neighborhood, almost immediately, came in Dave Shearer on trumpet, Dick Loring on baritone, and Steve Welsh on trombone. And then the next ones were Carolyn's friends were Diane Esterly on baritone horn, one of her Brownie co-leaders, one of her tennis partners was Dave Arner's mother, and so Dave came into the band. It just started growing like that, and then everybody knew everybody else, and we recruited everywhere.
Well, as I can recall, the quality was not very good because I don't believe that the people that had gathered there together were even knowingly interested in playing German music, marches and whatnot. But they were pretty enthusiastic, and I certainly was not a reader, and that was my problem with the Little German Band. I was not a reader like Leon Jordan, for example, and some of the other people.
The first time we played at the faculty club was pretty crazy because we had been having parties at the faculty club in which the music was made by a group of people who got together in Henry Bowen's basement every once in a while. Henry played the guitar. He didn't read music, but he knew how to play the guitar, and he would invite a bunch of people over to make music. Mostly guitar players. Cliff Willie played the mandolin, and George Crids played the washtub bass, and I played the string bass, and we had a bunch of graduate students and so on, mostly guitar players and I think a banjo or so. And so every once in a while we'd have a party at the faculty club with this little group making the music. So the first time we played at the faculty club, Little German Band played. I think we knew somewhere around 13 tunes. So we played our 13 tunes. Then the little string band came on and played for about an hour. Then we came back on and played our 13 tunes again. And then the string band came back on. Then we came back again and played our 13 tunes. So it was kind of a crazy event, but the faculty club was packed. It was really full. So after that, we started playing almost every month at the faculty club. And every time we played, there were more and more people there, and the band was bigger and bigger. We didn't even have any outfits to wear at that time. We just made up whatever we were wearing. We never really got costumes until that summer. And so the first few times at the faculty club were kind of funny.
The early jobs at the faculty club were kind of chaotic, to put it bluntly. It was a fairly small group, and it was strictly amateurish. A lot of fun, but music-wise, I'd say it was a little on the primitive side.
I was pretty enthusiastic. The band in the early days before the dance group would perform, and the dancers in the faculty club, many of them were Arthur Murray dancers, so they would flit about the dance floor and waltz and polka mainly. March arounds weren't too popular. That hadn't been something that had caught on quite yet. And kind of ruckus. It's a lot of fun, and that's what kind of kicked off the fun part of it.
Our outfits at that time, we ordered from the same people up in Pennsylvania that we still do some ordering from. But the lederhosen that we got were gray lederhosen. And we wore white shirts, and we got some Alpine-style hats, and I thought we should have some vests with the band also. Now, Bonnie Anderson was one of the people who attended these events at the faculty club. Her husband was a faculty member, and I heard that she was a very good seamstress, so I asked her if she would make these vests. And I think the only person who still got one and wears it is Keith. And he still wears that first vest, which is a kind of funny green color, and the back is a gold color. So those vests were made by Bonnie, and later on, I thought we should have flags on the music stands, and she also made those music stand flags.
Well, it was a long time ago, and I knew Jim Hammerly from the university and his wife, and I was professional seamstress, and so he asked me if I would make the vest. And so he measured, I think there might have been like 30, 35, the first batch I made, and we had small, medium, large, and extra large, and that's what I did. More than once. There were several times. And I also, I had my own labels that I put on it, made by Bonnie Unrath, unfortunately, at the time. Later on, I wanted him to recycle the labels after I married Chuck, but we never did get that done.
Obviously, after a short period of time of playing, we realized we needed to have some lights on the music stands so that we could turn the lights down in the venue in which we were playing. And almost right off the bat, somebody got the idea, I think it was Al Worth, that we could make lights out of beer cans. Now, this is a little more difficult than you might think, in that we had some of the guys, I think it was Al and maybe Dave Shearer and a couple others actually went to the brewery in Winston-Salem. Now, the can is made, and then the beer is put in, and then the lid is clamped on the top. So what they had to do was go to the assembly line and physically grab cans off the line before they were filled with beer, run around to the other side of the filler, put them back in the assembly line, and then the machine put the tops back on them again. So that now we had an empty beer can. And then we brought them back and we cut out the bottoms of them and installed the light switch in the top and put a device on it that would fit on the music stands. That's another Al Worth invention. Luckily, it's not like the rest of his inventions. It didn't weigh a ton. And so that's how we got the beer stand lights, the music stand beer lights.
The myth has it that they had taken a trip to Winston-Salem to the Slitch Brewery and had some beer cans that were printed upside down in order to make use of the top, which could be removed and used for the light bulb to be inserted, and the bottom would be, and this was before the cans had rounded bottoms or were aluminum. They were made out of, they were tin cans, and the story has it that they had this special run made to have the can made so that the top could be removed and the bottom could be used to secure the socket for the light bulb. And they lasted an unbelievable length of time, a number of years. I mean, it's only been recently, maybe 5 years, 6 years ago, that we stopped using them. And the post that Al Worth made to support the light was so strong that if you didn't have the light where you wanted it, you had no choice. It would not bend. It was, I guess, stainless steel, and they were solid as rocks.
were such an innovation in the beginning that the demand was huge. Everybody and his brother wanted to have a German theme party. And we played, it seemed like, all the time. I think we played about 120 times a year. We played every weekend throughout the year, sometimes 2 and 3 times. And that's when we used to use the big band. That was, everybody who wanted to go could go. And we never started using a small band until much later, or late in the 70s. And so quite frequently we would travel by bus, and it was very inexpensive. We'd fill up a bus and maybe a van or two also at the same time. And I think every possible venue that could be played in Wake County, we played there. And we traveled to Durham and Winston-Salem and Burlington and Lexington and Charlotte. And we played some really big events like the grand opening of the Charlotte Civic Center. We played for the Budweiser breweries or distributors in Lexington and Fayetteville and elsewhere. And that's when the horses were there too. And we just played a lot of different places. I think we played every church basement in Raleigh, of course, at the Civic Center, at the old Memorial Auditorium, Stewart Theater, Raleigh Little Theater, the theater at the Art Museum, everywhere. And in some of the strangest places, Carl Zobel arranged for us to play for the deaf folks in Raleigh. Now, this may sound a little strange, because how are they going to hear the music? Well, they can feel the music, and we played a big party, a house that the Lions had, and whoever else was involved with the deaf people. And when they wanted to get the attention of these people, they'd flash the lights so the people would know. And then when we start to play, they actually dance because they could feel the music. But that's just the kind of things we played for. Everyone wanted to have the band play, and all the clubs, the VFW and the Elks Club, we played all those places. Frankly,
Some of the places I had never seen before, and we just went wherever Jim Hammerly lined things up for us.
I remember not really knowing where we were going to perform or what we were going to perform for. I would show up in the parking lot, and we would either carpool or take a bus. And if it was a large group going, it was always a Southern bus. We'd go, we'd perform, we'd come back, get in the car, and go home. Sometimes I'm not really sure where we were, but that's what I remember.
Well, as the band was growing, we started absorbing people from other groups. And for example, the Shrine Band was located in Raleigh before it was moved to New Bern. And we got several Shriners in the band: Pete Peterson on clarinet, and his good friend Jimmy Weaver on trombone, Dave Hunter on tuba, and a couple of others. And Jimmy Weaver was a well-known figure in North Carolina with music. When he was at UNC, Chapel Hill, he had a big dance band that traveled all over North Carolina. In the eastern part of North Carolina, they had these big dances that they called Germans. No one knows why, but he took this big dance band everywhere. So he's very well known. And he was a commercial artist in Raleigh, had a studio, and he played in a band. And I asked Jimmy, do you think you can dream up a logo for us? So he came up with a few designs, one of which he threw in the trash. Well, at that time, Linda Speece, who later became our almost full-time artist, was working for Jimmy at that time. And she got this drawing out of the trash that Jimmy didn't really care for much, and she started making some changes in it. And so she and Jimmy came back to me and said, we think we like this design here. And I said, I like it too. Let's put it on the bass drum. And at that time we had the small Scotch-style bass drum. And they painted that foaming beer mug on the bass drum, said Little German Band. And that became our logo that shows up everywhere now.
Jimmy Weaver, all by himself, with Jim Hammerly, created that logo. I did not create it. Jim Hammerly gives me credit that I don't deserve. He wanted it on the drum, and Jimmy Weaver, the very first thing he did, I think, was put it on a drum. I had to come back later. I think what you see here, I painted, but it had to be redone. And but Jimmy just knocked it out very quickly on the drum, not expecting it to ever become a logo. In fact, Jimmy thought it was a pretty dumb logo because he didn't think a beer mug belonged with music.
The dance group also had a strange beginning. Carolyn and I had attended to a NATO plenary session in Brussels in the summer of 1976, and we were just bumming our way around Europe and wound up in Paris. I wanted to go down to the Riviera and see the topless bathing beauties, and Carolyn said, it's too darn hot, we're going to the mountains. So the next evening, we boarded the eastbound Orient Express in Paris, and we went to bed that night. Woke up, we were in the mountains. It was nice and cool, and it looked very nice outside. So next train station, I said, let's get off. We got off, it was Salzburg, Austria. And so that night, we went to a folklore show at the castle on the top of the mountain, right behind Salzburg.